clear quorum, but
We'll need somebody to take this, right?
yeah, I can do it.
We're live and in living color.
All right. Let's see. It is Thursday, September 20.
Yeah, I always back it up with the recording, just in case we lose YouTube.
All right, it's Thursday, September 23rd, 2021. This is a meeting of the Grand Island Conservation Advisory Board. We're calling the meeting to order. It is 7:21 p.m. Okay. All right, so I emailed out a
Just as a matter of record, so there's one person online, 4 people present here. That is a quorum. The new New York State reinstituted that online participation in voting is permissible by New York State open meetings law. So we do have an official quorum, just so you know.
Good.
And we need it because we're going to do the long road
Jeff,
scoping document tonight.
Diane, Paul, and Sam, and then everybody else. So I'm getting this, getting my computer up ready to go. So I sent out the agenda, and on that agenda, the first thing was the meeting minutes, but Tom is out of town, so we don't have those to review. So we're going to skip that. Projects. Okay, so before we get started on the long road distribution facility, I just wanted to get any updates. Mike, I don't know if you would have any information on either, let's see, the projects that were happening besides Long Road. We have the South Point project. We have, I don't know what's going on. Rivertown.
Yep.
And then the old Lighthouse Point.
Right.
Those were the projects that we're kind of keeping a watch on.
What is Lighthouse Point?
It's East River and Whitehaven.
Okay.
The Radisson.
It was actually active probably about 7 years ago.
Right.
No, and it kind of died then, and now it's coming back to life again. But it's been inactive. So let's just start with that one. No new activity on that one. So they haven't submitted anything yet. So they haven't started the process, but we're expecting something imminently. So don't have it, but it's coming. Similarly, Rivertown, which is Webb Road, Baseline. So Webb Road, Baseline, and Grand Island Boulevard. So it's right in that zone there. I think behind Marston's motor, tractor, whatever you want to call it. So that one, they're requesting a rezoning, and we're still in discussions on that whole topic. I believe there's going to be a public hearing, but it has, oh no, there was a public hearing, it's been closed, and there's really been no new activity on that one as well that I'm aware of. And South Point, which I think just about everyone knows, there's been a lot of activity, but not through the town. It's just they're in there doing a lot of clear cutting, a lot of removing of trees.
Do you know, so we've gotten some interest from the public about something that's happening really close to here. Just there was a clearing.
Is that over by
the
Baseline, over by the church there?
Yeah.
I heard it's just clearing out next to the church and it's someone's property, and I've heard there's no project associated with it that we're aware of, so.
I heard that too.
Yep. Just kind of clearing
Clear
out.
the underbrush and the dead ash. And
Right.
Is that your like baseline in Whitehaven?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot his name. I just talked to him the other day.
Right. And so
That's
you
what he
heard the
was
same
doing.
thing.
He was
He's
just
talked to a few people about it.
clearing out the brush and that.
Yep. Yep.
He wasn't gonna mow everything down.
Right.
Very different.
Yeah.
All right. I'm taking minutes too as I go, so
Multitasking.
You know, multi-
Yeah,
Check, check.
Guy wanted the chocolate house.
Oh, is that what it is?
Oh.
Okay, yep.
oh,
Johnny.
okay.
I
Oh.
can't remember his last name.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite places at Christmas time.
Okay, so, all right, that's the project. So now we're looking at 2780 Long Road scoping document.
You want me to bring it up? Or were you gonna bring it up? I don't know what you were thinking.
Go ahead. I'm worried that if I pop in, then it might cut Sam off. No.
And actually, I have Sam in the process here, so let me share my screen.
I'm trying to get my camera to work, but
You don't need it, Sam,
okay.
not required. You can see our screen right now. It should say draft scoping document.
Yes, I can just see your screen.
I'm old school.
I mean, we can do this. Are you gonna take notes there, or did you want to take notes right on the document?
Okay, so I guess what I can do is we can add. So did everybody get a chance to look through this?
Yeah.
Okay. Now this was what was proposed by the developer.
Yeah, and there is some additions from the town board on this as well.
Okay, so what did the town board,
We added,
because if, you know, if we're gonna recommend stuff that we don't wanna recommend stuff that's already been added.
right, well, just a minute. Get this out of the way here. So this is where a lot of so these are the areas that we want focused on: traffic, ground and surface water quality, air quality, drainage, endangered or threatened species, noise. So noise was added, natural resource energy usage, water and sewer infrastructure, surface water was added. I'm pretty sure, yeah, so culture and character was added, water quality, I think, was added, light pollution was definitely added. Land excavation and filling, I don't know if you know, there's like 20 or 40 feet of fill in some locations. It starts very little, and when you get over to long, it's a very deep addition of soil, basically. Then it's a matter of how do you measure? Is it from the ground up, the original ground up, or from the filled ground up as far as the height of the building? So there's some discussions about that as well.
Should be from the ridge.
That's what I think. That's what I think many on the board think,
Otherwise, you could just keep piling dirt next to your building.
which means it would be a height variance. If it's
Well,
from
the
the
applicant
height
mentioned that
of
they
the
haven't gone to
current
the zoning board.
or the proposed surface, you know, with the fill, then there wouldn't be a requirement for a height variance, and that's still yet to be legally wrangled through, basically.
All right, so.
So, and then there's sections down below that kind of add some detail or color to that. But
So
yes, you're right.
isn't it the full EAF that we should be looking at? 'Cause that's what I spent a lot of time on, reading their full environmental assessment form.
Yeah, so
Okay,
So just to kind of lay the ground, so what this is this is a scoping document for the environmental impact assessment. So this is the scope, so think high level, it's just kind of, these are the things we want you to look at.
Mhm.
In the future, they're gonna start proposing, this is the study we're gonna do, and then, you know, then we need to have a discussion, is what they're proposing in that study sufficient? So think executive summary, that's what we're talking about now, is these are the major categories we want to look at. And we're giving some level of detail on the expectation, but
but they've already come back with their responses. That's in the EAF, correct?
no, this is we've added, we've not taken anything out of, but this is what they came back with as their proposed scope for the EIAS, what's it stand for? It's a supplement.
Environmental impact.
It's a supplemental document for the,
Yeah.
right,
But this is what we're already all familiar with all of this. So what are we gonna discuss tonight? I thought we were gonna discuss their responses in the EAF.
So this is new. Everything from this point on is new. So I think were you looking at the old, the Amazon?
Yeah, so
No,
just
no,
to be,
no, I was looking at the
just to be
one.
clear, so
that
what's
they-
happened is they submitted saying that they've sufficiently done everything. They asked us for a negative declaration. We declared a positive declaration,
Right,
and because based on why did we declare a positive deck? We feel these are the categories that need to be focused on. So now what we're doing is we're focusing on what do they need to do supplementally to cover the requirements for the assessment going forward on top of what the basic documentation they already have.
so the EAF is considered the base.
What's been done already is the base, and we're building up from there, basically. So like the traffic study, I mean, if it was done 20 years ago, we probably need some more work done there. Air quality, things, there was never a baseline done, for instance, as far as air quality.
We'll take the air quality one, which is, they gave all these statistics, but I'm not a person who can interpret those. Do you know what I mean? They gave all these percentages and all that on the air quality section of the EAF. But, how do
Looks like you
we,
did a lot of homework.
I did.
Why don't we do this, Diane?
Confused
Maybe
us.
go from top to bottom, just so you don't miss anything, and just share
Okay.
with us what you have
all
there.
right,
And we'll see where that fits into this document,
okay,
So,
because we have a bunch of categories.
yeah,
Yes.
and so when you're talking about the EAF, I'm just curious where you, so. The
I got it
response,
up.
so the stuff that was done, that was
Yeah.
submitted, like, because I haven't seen.
Because that doesn't go away.
Any-
This is
Yeah.
building off of what's already been done.
Yeah,
Like, they're gonna propose that certain things are done, and here's our justification why we think it's sufficient. This is hopefully more focused on what incrementally do we feel needs to be done, like you, I think, mentioned the air quality and getting a baseline. and-
yeah, before and after,
Right.
and, you know, and that's what it is, it's like, you know, when you do air quality, you wanna do like. before,
Yeah, I
like
understand
right
the
before,
importance
not
of it.
necessarily like 5-10 years ago before. It should be done
Right.
before construction and after construction.
but on the list of documents on the website, further down, there is a full EAF that's been filled out.
Right.
Isn't that what we need to examine and say what's missing and what's misrepresented?
So in a way, by the town board making that positive declaration, they said that that's not suffice, that is not suffice. And so if we ask them, okay, so we want you to do a little bit, this is what we want done.
Mhm.
And, you know, they could always come back and say, well, this was done, but then they have to say when it was done and how it was done, and it still might not be suffice. That's what we're asking now. I don't.
That's the accurate answer to your question is, if you look through the original documentation and found holes,
Mhm.
the answer is yes, that's what this is about. So
Okay.
if you found holes, you should review those holes, and we'll see how it fits into this document.
Sure, okay,
Because really what this document is looking at that prior, what's already been done, and saying that
okay,
we feel that there needs to be more done to confirm what the true impact, environmental impact is. And here are the areas we see deficient on the existing documentation.
So, culture and character of the island community, they're already getting at the long range plan. Like, it's fit with the long range plan, like, you know, that,
Well, it's like, I think it's better detailed lower here.
I do think that's a major topic of discussion, and an impact point, because, you know, a huge warehouse like that it's not, the way it's written in the long range rate rate, so, smaller buildings spread out, park-like setting and all that stuff,
Mhm.
it absolutely doesn't.
I think you just went by it, like,
Did I?
go up just another right, community
Yep,
character.
there we go.
Town comprehensive, there it is, yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, each one of those bullets, we have a summary of what the expectation is.
campus, like, yeah, that's exactly what I remember reading. Okay, I mean, that's a good addition. I guess since it's already in there, we don't,
Is that in the current draft? Is that in the reading it?
know, it's something they had.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's not up on the website,
um,
because I just printed the one off the website yesterday and I didn't see that.
yeah, so the town board has added to this.
Okay.
So the one that was posted on the websites, we've already got feedback coming from the planning board, from legal, from the town board, so we've added to it a little bit. And rather than revisit ground that's already been covered, this board is gonna continue to build on that.
Okay. I saw threatened and endangered species. That was another one that I'd like to get some more detail on. Be great to get a baseline of all, like, just a baseline as far as wildlife in general and, habitats in general.
So you're gonna write bullets in, or,
I'm sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the other option is if I put comments. So,
All right, I'm
That's your cap, right?
yeah, but I can call it a different name and that's not a problem.
Well, yeah, because that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think we can stick it right up there. As long as you're not overwriting up counts officially.
No, this is not anything official. Well, it is the copy that we're gonna build off, that's all. Would you rather me do that, Jeff? I mean, I can do that if you want. Problem is, this keyboard is kind of iffy, so. But if you think you can efficiently do it there, you probably type
Yeah, as
faster
long as
than me.
I'm fine. I'm going to just write it into our minutes and then probably at the end of all this, make a motion as to what we advise.
Okay, so you're looking for a more inclusive, all-inclusive list.
Yeah, so I get definitely the threatened and endangered species, special concern animal or plant species, but then there's also like, we have those unique environments, habitats, and, just a general wildlife study just to see what's there. You're right, those definitely outrank it, but I'm kind of curious as to what's there, because if you build there, the wildlife is going to move somewhere, okay?
Right.
And it's good to have a record of, what is there, so what we can expect would move out into the surrounding areas and neighborhoods.
So the animals move the plants.
Which would basically be an updated survey, because you can't rely on information that's publicly available, because it's probably not been updated for a long time.
Yeah, just looking back, it's good data to have, period, and it hasn't really been updated in a long time.
Not a long
Right.
time.
So, and it would be a good spot to do that since it's proximal to not only, West River and Buckhorn, but like you got wetlands in there and stuff like that. So it's a nice.
Well, it mentions it in the EAF, interference with nesting, breeding, foraging for the predominant species. Requires conversion of more than 10 acres of forest or, let's see what else they wrote down. And they give no explanation. They mention that it might interfere, but they don't give any explanation as what they're gonna do about it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And maybe a part of that discussion is thinking about wildlife corridors and movement.
Yeah.
Because it is adjacent to Buckhorn, so looking at big picture issues as well, so going in inventorying the species that exist there. And then what is the impact going to have on their habitat?
And I think that the recommendation should be coming from an expert. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I think that if we have an expert that goes out and assesses what's there, that they would have a recommendation to the town at least, take it or leave it, but they could come back with what they think would be best for those species.
So capture that. You'd like a biologist or
Yeah.
some wildlife expert to do an assessment of,
And inventory, well,
an assessment or inventory of
Yeah.
wildlife and the impacts.
yeah.
Wildlife.
And
it's really
because of the size.
And this is endangered and threatened species. This isn't,
Size and proximity.
Because that could impact so many areas, when you're talking about retention ponds, when you're talking about changing the flow of streams, if there are, for example, endangered amphibians or whatever amphibians are there. All of that information, I think, would inform so much of the other impacts of a project of this size.
Okay, so
Was that done with South Point?
South Point was the 90s when that was approved.
Uh,
Like, I don't think, like, the answer is,
Oh.
we don't know, and I don't think it mattered because
It
it
was
was,
done that
it was,
now before they did that?
Yeah.
I mean, There's a lot of animals coming up.
Yeah.
the only thing holding up the South Point was the sewer.
Hmm.
Right.
And everything else was already.
Zoning and everything was taken care of in the 90s.
so say a qualified biologist,
Wildlife inventory / habitat inventory by a qualified wildlife biologist, ecologist with recommendations.
or impact assessments relative to
Yeah.
animal movement corridors and related concerns.
Because I think out of this project, the town should be able to get them to agree to, if something is found that's gonna be disturbed, that's not too common, that they would agree to help protect it
Or
somehow.
mitigate it
Or
somehow,
mitigate,
if they're
yeah.
able to mitigate it, yeah.
Right.
I got a question. Who is going to hire this expert? The town or the,
That would be the developer's responsibility. Sometimes, we may actually decide, like with the Amazon, they hired their expert, we hired a consulting expert to confirm what their expert was saying, basically.
okay.
So how far we take that, yet to be determined, but that's how we address it with Amazon originally. And we actually did hire a couple of folks, and they did quite a bit of work.
Jeff, do we want to put anything there about, we're asking this because of the size of the property and the proximity
Yeah.
because I mean, otherwise someone's gonna say,
Yeah,
why are you
mention-
doing
mention
this
Buckhorn.
versus, some of the other ones, right? This is
Proximity to Buckhorn.
proximity to Buckhorn and the river
And the river.
and the size of the area they're disturbing.
And throw in the Ramsar designation.
There you go.
Proximity to Buckhorn State Park. West River.
Location within Ramsar designated corridor.
I wonder if we can get someone like Jim DeCruz to do it. He'd be perfect. He's a DEC biologist.
All right, so wildlife inventory, habitat inventory by qualified wildlife biologist, ecologist with recommendations, impact assessments related to concerns due to the size of the property and the proximity to Buckhorn State Park, West River, surrounding homes, and location within a Ramsar designated corridor. All right, so we're somehow gonna come back to that. We'll make sure
I
we have
think
the
that's
right
pretty
word.
good.
Yep, right wording there. That's really our, so you put air quality, which is going to be big. You put the noise on there, which is going to be big. And traffic studies, yes, the traffic studies.
And all of
Definitely
these
the light.
issues
And the
are
light.
so amorphous because he has not identified who the tenant is going to be.
Right.
So all that impacts air quality, all of that impacts the traffic study.
Mhm.
I think
Okay, so did you want to look at noise?
Let's look at your, well, one of them, yeah.
Let's do noise and we can look at air
Okay.
quality.
All right, so
what about ground and surface water quality?
That is up here. We can hit those in a minute.
Right.
section on all potential noise sources during construction. Okay, post-construction. Studies be prepared. baseline studies are important. Once you have all those trucks rumbling down near those homes, backing up all the time and beep, beep, beep. You know, like,
Yeah.
we can hear the water in the falls on a clear day, so I can only imagine when once the is gonna hear beep, beep, beep.
And here's air quality.
Well, let's.
Was there any more under noise,
any
just to
or
make sure?
anything noise, yeah.
Is there any,
Did you have anything, Diane, on
So
your list?
I,
If we don't know who the tenant is, how are they
Right.
gonna present us with any kind of accurate information?
Mhm.
Well, we don't know the tenant, but we know it's a warehouse and we know there's 200 truck bays,
Right,
which
so
just
we
tells
get-
you it's gonna be a heavy duty trucking operation. It's not a light duty, it's gonna be heavy duty.
So
I mean, show me a warehouse with 200 truck bays.
So we need an expert to tell us what
I
that
don't know
noise
what
level
in
is
Western
going to be.
Europe.
generated from
So,
children.
do we want to put anything about hours? Right, I mean, because noise during the day is different than noise
Yeah.
at night,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so
right? I mean,
maybe
if I'm
capture
a
it.
neighbor,
Right.
so I'm hearing these trucks coming and going at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night.
My daughter just rented a house in the dumpster in the parking lot adjacent to her at 4 a.m. That's just a teeny tiny example,
Yeah,
how noise can really.
you know, the weakness with that is, it's like a security guard that watches the robbery and just says, I'm just here monitoring and reporting that there's a robbery, because if we're gonna evaluate that, we won't know until it's in full operation,
Right.
and then it is what it is, you know?
Well, no, and that's clear when he says, we'll look at noise barriers. Well, I'm sorry, I don't think noise barriers work all that well, but. All right, that's an
What about,
after the
so
fact.
we're,
So, I mean, you got the baseline studies there. We'll be preparing potential noise barriers to be evaluated. We just want to make sure that includes baseline studies during the day and night, right?
Yep.
what
So,
about, and aren't there, but doesn't the town have an ordinance? So there are certain levels we can't go beyond?
Yes,
So we want to make, okay.
There's just a stupid time.
but that's pretty loud. You don't
Yeah.
even want to be halfway there, after 11 at night. So, I mean, that's when a loud band is next door to your house, So, I mean, that's pretty
Yeah.
extreme. So
Okay.
this is, I mean, if you have just a low rumble all the time, that's can be very disruptive.
Yeah.
I mean, people like to go in their backyard and say, breathe in the fresh air and have peace and quiet and hear crickets,
Right.
And if there's a low rumble,
Well,
even though it doesn't break a noise barrier, it's an impact on
And
quality
there
of
are
life.
people who have issues related to that, for whom it is a health
Medical.
issue, extreme medical issue as well.
Anything else? Did you
Yeah.
capture something on the noise then?
so I did. I mean, I added our recommendation in addition to that. Baseline studies cover a lot of things. We just would recommend that it's done that day and night. Anything else?
So methodically, I'm gonna just start at the beginning rather than jumping around, if that's okay.
That Grand Island Bridge, the noise has increased significantly over the years. And I'm just mentioning that because I live 3/10 of a mile away from Tim Hortons on Staley Road. And the noise compared to what it was years ago is a lot. It's just annoying. And when I go out at night to take my dog out and that's all I hear is bridge traffic. It's really annoying. If I had the money to move someplace, I would do it. It's just horrible.
It's gonna get like.
So impact on land, so summary, this section should location and description, so that's just that.
Yeah.
Impact of surface water and groundwater, so let's just start there, and just
Yeah.
go down, and then we'll hit maybe Diane's.
Stormwater management plan. Gotcha. Location and system facilities, impacts to federal, state wetlands. Okay, that's in there. Impacts on streams, creeks, and you can remember that
What
There's
kind
a-
of,
They actually relocate.
there's a
the stream.
relocation, there's a stream relocation.
I would call that out,
Yeah.
impact on from the relocation of the one stream. And then there's.
And I think that this issue is more pressing now because, we're going to have more extreme weather. And if you take away all of the plants that absorb all of the moisture, and you have this runoff from these, torrential rains, that just exacerbates, that's just an additional factor that makes all this, gathering this information more important.
Well, they have, I forget how many acres of, I wrote down here 63 acres of impervious surfaces.
Say that one more time, how many acres?
63
Wow, that's
acres
incredible.
of
That is
impervious surface
incredible.
Yeah, we really do.
That's because it's building. It's a building.
and parking lot.
Building and parking.
Well,
Yeah,
we, us and the town board, I think, really owes a thorough investigation onto that because the West River homeowners, they need to know what the impact is going to be exactly before it
and
happens.
if the impact's gonna be too great, they should be planting vegetation, not just
Well,
leaving a buffer,
So
but
maybe,
they need to revisit their plan.
Or they need to have porous parking lots. or
Forest
not.
parking lots, exactly.
which
I mean,
they
it
probably
is.
won't, but.
No, they said it was too expensive or
so,
something.
so that does fall under streams and creeks and everything, because you're talking about runoff
Right,
and retention.
Right.
Yeah.
So a good engineering study reviewing
The impact
re-
of 67 acres.
runoff and retention associated with an impervious surface of 63 acres. You might want to mention, is there options for porous
Yeah,
parking lots?
explore the option. though.
Right. 63 acres of the rain we've had the last 24 hours,
Mhm.
that's a lot of water.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, I'm go somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go somewhere. All right, so.
And I know, Diane, you're always worried about the stream banks.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
banks. I don't know if there's anything there that you want to mention or not, but
Well, let's see, how
Well,
could
the
we,
stream's gonna get moved, so.
Well, I think,
know.
I think a bigger picture is we need a detailed plan, landscaping plan. And then in the detail of that landscaping plan has to be vegetation appropriate for stream bed. Right?
Yeah.
You're kind of saying that for the relocated stream,
Any stream.
how are they going
All of it.
to?
We need a very detailed landscaping plan that addresses native planting, plans appropriate for,
not to hold back erosion?
yeah.
I mean, no.
Oh, one of the questions you had, Jeff, was, just so you know, the Traffic Safety Board is actually reviewing this in October, so we're not behind the curve on
Okay.
this.
Yeah, that was my one, but we did it in the right order. Okay, so recommend requesting a detailed landscaping plan, including vegetation appropriate for streams, banks, erosion determinant, and
But rain gardens.
Yeah, I suggested that for him. I think.
Yeah, I know.
They said their ponds were bigger than any rain gardens were gonna help. but That was just,
The rain gardens filter
That
the
was
water
just
there.
their answer.
From the
Yeah.
groundwater, yeah.
Could be suggested.
what about the stuff not around the streams and whatnot? I mean, we're on water.
Yeah,
I
so
feel like the
make
detailed
sure the
landscaping
wording,
plan.
make sure the wording relative to landscaping is focused on stream beds and waterways and ponds. Because
Maybe
that's
they-
the section you're addressing here.
Suggest
Yeah,
detailed
stormwater.
landscaping.
You should actually mention that under section, you should probably mention the section we're talking about, which is 4.5.2. We can catch it, right? Thanks.
I mean, actually, I
And
mean,
that would work.
we
Yeah.
could actually consult maybe with the old river keepers, the
Yeah.
water keepers, I'm sorry, not changing their names.
Water features. How's that? Recommend requesting a detailed landscape plan for water features, 4.5.2, including vegetation, various streams, banks, erosion rain gardens.
Yeah.
They can,
Did you actually call out the movement of the one stream and
yes. Impact due to stream relocation.
We would need a
and
specialist. to-
associated bank, creek bank restoration or whatever you want to call
So my worry about that is the Corps of Engineers. Sure.
it. So continuing on, we done with groundwater resources? You mentioned 63 acres and are ponds and runoff sufficient to be managed.
We looked at the.
So here's-
endangered and threatened and species.
Yeah,
of
so put
concern.
that reference number,
What was it?
4.5.3.
And that was the one with all the areas. 4.5.3,
Correct.
got it.
You know, it shouldn't really be just endangered.
Yeah, I know, we
Yeah.
we're recommending
Okay.
all.
Okay. good.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So traffic, transportation, that's gonna be dealt with the traffic safety board, so that's kind of out of our zone. Unless, except for when it comes to air quality, pollution, things of that nature.
Emissions, yeah.
So,
I think it would be.
but if you have anything, throw it out there.
I didn't have anything.
Honestly, that is really what people were
Truck
upset about.
emissions.
Right.
For air quality, truck emissions, but.
We do have air quality in a minute, so we'll
Okay.
cover that under air quality rather than traffic.
Stuff like the improvements for the use of low and zero impact emission vehicles. Wish there was a way we could hold them to, like the electric transfers, so they're not just driving the diesel trucks to back
That's
something
above
up.
our, that's a federal
I
level,
know.
air quality driven, yeah.
We should have some charging stations.
So noise we've already got, but you might want to note the 4.5.5 for noise.
Underwater.
Mhm.
Well, I think when we talk about a landscaping plan, we also need to talk about if they plan the use of any chemicals or herbicides. Because we're talking about,
Something there.
runoff, we're talking about.
Yes.
Create a bullet just for
So we would-
insecticides, herbicides, pesticides.
Yeah, we would want.
Well, water testing. And you want, just because the runoff goes into a pond, eventually goes into the river. Is there something? Most of the time when we test, we don't test for the chemicals. though,
But
right?
maybe
Mhm.
for
But usually a
herbicides,
landscape plan would
insecticides,
also
pesticides,
Um,
evaluate
part of the landscaping plan is how
appropriate.
they're going to maintain it. Part of the
restrictions.
maintenance is their use of herbicides and pesticides. Where you
I don't
remove
believe we have a
controls
section
there.
for that here, so that's a new category that's been missed.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna, because we're doing additional recommendations, it's kind of what I'm putting this under, we can
Yep.
limit, prevent use of herbicides, insecticides, pesticides.
Probably don't need to, tell impervious material.
True. Sadly enough, there won't be a lick of vegetation.
But our river, the river's gonna suffer.
Of course.
It's gonna be more oil.
That's true.
So that's something to think about.
Yeah.
Make sure we're catching the oil and other.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I was saying about the water quality, right? So it runs into a pond, but the pond eventually seeps into the river, right?
Well, the
So
big thing is the parking lot and all
Yeah.
the
cars
discharge,
dripping.
We
right.
should have special features for that,
And
collecting that,
salt,
don't
you
they?
know, salt usage.
Not being a builder themselves.
So maybe impact on surface water and groundwater resources. Do you want to put runoff from parking lot, oils and
Yeah. and
Yeah.
here's the
oils and
runoff.
salts and other pollutants?
Yes,
And request an assessment for that.
Mhm.
and how to, an assessment and
So
how
oil,
they'll address
salts,
it.
other pollutants, leaching and or used to manage the parking lot.
Is this where again, you could do a baseline on the creek that exists and say, what's the water quality today versus the water quality. I don't know.
It keeps it calling it a ditch. I don't know.
That's the thing too, though. The better thing is, okay, it's great to have a baseline, but I think we need a projection of what kind of impact are we talking about before it's already happened, and then we're just reporting, oh, well, yep, it's bad, you know what I mean?
A request to assessment.
Because it's all gonna enter the river and go through the groundwater, or from the retention pond, but it's gonna get there one way or the other.
And the effort of the whole Western New York area is to improve the quality of the river.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
buy water keepers around.
Did you get that there? Jeff, keep going then, or how we doing here?
All right, so you got speedies in there.
Can you put in something about the impervious?
I did.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we're off of groundwater now, going past endangered species, which I think we covered.
Yeah.
Traffic, we're gonna let others cover other than the oil dripping and things like that that we hit a minute ago. And we're gonna hit air quality to cover the rest of that missing gap there. Noise we've covered. Air quality, let's talk about that some more then. So it's just this section here.
What's interesting is like, there's more than one way to measure air quality than just assessing the air. The soil, right? So if you do the soil assessments, you have to remember that a lot of farmland that is adjacent to these large facilities has become contaminated to the point where they're no longer allowed to grow crops. And so,
Well, and that goes to that category about culture, community, the sort of overall culture.
the comprehensive plan. So,
You want a baseline here too, I
Yeah.
think.
yeah, is that in there?
I don't see it, no.
Oh, nice.
Or maybe natural resources too. With adjacent farmland would be natural resources.
Yeah, let's just
Mhm.
focus on air quality. Well, that's the next one.
Mhm.
The document's not consistently formatted, that's all.
Okay, so request baseline on air pollution. I was gonna put the rest of the stuff, but if you're saying we gotta go to a different category, I might make that a different bullet then
For what?
for soil samples and adjacent farmland. Would that be more natural resources or air quality? I feel like the baseline on air quality, I think what we, just taking samples in the air, you gotta sample what's in the soil, what pollutants are in the soil, so that way you know if they increase or decrease. A lot of the air pollution generated by diesel trucks settles
Yeah,
into the ground.
lead, arsenic.
But
So you're kind
I'm
of,
not too sure you want to put that in the air though, because you also have the runoff.
yeah,
So if
because
you
it's
wanna
really,
do soil, you want it's the
So,
soil, whether it got there from the air or the water, right?
okay. So request a baseline.
so maybe we need another new category, which would be soil. Because we're looking for ground contamination,
Yes.
Right, within the site and adjacent property.
right?
Because when their property leaves,
Associated with
all of that will be
all
there.
the trucks and
What will that
traffic
land
and
be usable for?
the
salt
63
and
acres
all the
and-
stuff that runs off, so the neighbor gets
Mhm.
the salt and the oil and all of a sudden this stuff's useless.
All right, so category, request baseline on properties, pollution currently in the soil surrounding the development.
Within development, surrounding development.
Anything else?
On transportation. Perfect.
Oh, we're not there.
Oh, we're
And I
not
don't know if we're
Okay.
gonna do much there.
No, okay.
So we're just, we're creating okay, so I requested a baseline on air pollution. And then we kind of left that because we're requesting a soil category, requested baseline on properties pollution currently in the soil within and surrounding the development.
Sorry, what was that?
Soil, we're requesting a soil category, and we would request a baseline on properties of pollution currently in the soil within and surrounding the development.
So I would call it something like soil and ground or whatever, soil pollution,
Nice.
for a better term.
Soil health, soil ecology.
Contamination.
I mean, it's-
Yeah.
Because groundwater contamination, I think, is different than when you're talking
They're ve-
runoff.
Yeah, they're very
So-
related.
So I would call it soil and groundwater contamination assessment,
Mhm,
impact assessment,
mhm.
because that's more where the ground is retaining that water and it's just sitting there and it's got oil and other things in it. I think, so that's a separate category.
Can you go back to the landscaping plan for a minute? I think that would be an appropriate place to ask them for a list of native and non-invasive species. You know, we don't want a bunch of, we don't want a landscaping plan that's that large, that's not gonna support pollinators.
That's not even, that's really,
Okay.
so we kind of put that under groundwater.
The landscaping plan.
Yeah, we were focused more, I think, on
Okay, so,
riverbanks.
well, then we'll
But
need to
maybe
figure out-
I would call that out as a separate category. Is vegetation,
The importance of diversity too.
vegetation, forest and other indigenous species assessment or something like that, you know? Is that in landscape, put landscaping into that?
Well, I think that they should do a survey of the existing vegetation and tree survey. Because I think that we want to identify,
So indigenous vegetation assessment, impact assessment.
Yeah.
Which would include an inventory of that.
so yeah, we would want to know if there are, what is that category of trees?
The shoe myrtle.
The tree
Yeah.
survey, heritage trees.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, because we would want them to be saved. To
If
the extent
possible.
possible, yeah,
Right.
but we want to know that they're there. But it also goes to, are there rare species of vegetation? We would want to know that, you know, there are
We already
places
have
on
that.
Grand Island where there are species of trees that are very rare, that don't exist hardly any place else in this area, so.
Right, but we asked for that under the rare and endangered, we expanded that
Okay.
for a survey, right?
A detailed survey of existing vegetation and trees.
Did we say that
Well-
under,
Wasn't it just animals?
No.
No?
It was definitely plants too.
Oh, okay.
Animal or plant species.
But-
Jeff,
Yeah,
Jeff,
it's not
Jeff
very-
made,
it's
no,
not
Jeff
very
made changes to
specific.
that.
Oh, Jeff, okay.
yeah, so he's added recommendations to
Right.
that.
All right, so I mean, just to be clear, we have the wildlife inventory, habitat inventory, but then down here past the landscape plan 4.5.2. We had a detail, we requested a detail one and perhaps a category of vegetative impact assessment to inventory all vegetation on the development site.
All of it. Don't ask for those things. I mean, this is,
Wow.
this is,
Honestly, it's not as diverse. That's all I can say. It's not as diverse. It sounds like a lot, but
right.
it's not as diverse.
But we want some diversity in the landscape.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, to your point though, I think in here though, we can put it in another line that says, you know, when we're replacing things, your landscaping, we want that, because I don't think, I mean, right now, we say, you know, we're looking for the survey, we want to know what's there, yada, 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 but the next step is when we're done, what are you gonna put back?
Mhm.
Right, so I think you could probably put that in there.
Maybe in the restoration or something.
You know what? I
Mitigation.
think it was you, Paul, that mentioned, someone mentioned Ramsar
Mhm.
for the migratory birds.
Mhm.
I think that's warrants probably a section all by itself, is an impact assessment on migratory birds from whatever's being constructed.
Mm. And that goes to the light category as well,
Yeah,
because it really is disruptive. Which is why we would need.
If we're gonna talk about light, I think we should
I think there is a
Could be
category. here
ocean
somewhere.
request night sky lighting
Yes.
for wildlife and human. I mean,
Mm.
this is gonna greatly affect wildlife, yeah.
Impact on migratory birds and Ramsar corridor, including pollution, light, noise. There's overlap between these categories, so I mean, we gotta know that, and I think it's just a consequence of the way this document's set up. But I think it's okay, like, I think if you mention light pollution in more than one category, that they get it, there's still only one light pollution study.
Can we be specific to night sky lighting?
I think so.
You have to recommend that.
Yeah, I would call it out as a category, I think. I'm actually surprised, I'm not seeing light listed.
You had it in your
I think
index up front.
Is it up there?
Contents, right? Yes.
Let me just see.
because it is such a migratory.
Light pollution right there. You should
Okay.
buy it.
Yeah,
I
so you know what?
remember-
That was added, but we haven't put any detail to it, but let's put that in there.
There are other locations around the Great Lakes where huge parking lots have been installed. And birds mistake them for bodies of water, and there are mass killings of them.
Yes.
So we need,
And there's a large body of water right next.
right,
to it,
exactly,
so-
this is like a setup for that exact kind of situation, so. We need an expert to provide information on the impact
mean,
of
maybe-
migrating birds.
And
and how
maybe
to-
in a mass parking lot, they would suggest, little avenues of trees in between the mass.
Whatever the
You know what I
expert
mean?
says, but we need somebody with expertise in that area
So you keep capture Ramsar.
in the form of a report to tell us what we need to do to what they need to do to mitigate
I would,
the impact.
in your
of that.
recommendations, actually say that should be called out as a separate category all by itself, I think. Just like light and air and water and everything else, is migratory birds.
Migratory.
And Susan, is there something we want to capture with what you're talking about? I didn't quite catch it.
Well, I think we need a
The
consultant, an expert on bird migration to talk about the possible impact
So,
of.
so you should suggest
A development of
We've
this
done that
size
once,
in an
but
important
you mentioned a
migration corridor.
recommend town
Well,
hire a
we-
consultant
we
to,
did say a wildlife biologist, but
and just so you know, when the town hires it, typically the developer would be paying for something
yes.
with this big of a project.
right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because we're not qualified to do that.
Oh, I know. And I think the short-eared owl was mentioned a few times. It is on the threatened list in New York, but it doesn't necessarily breed here. But it is, it's been seen here and it does hunt in the area.
I know they say short-eared owl, is there a long-eared owl?
Yes, there
Is there?
is.
That's the
Yes.
difference.
No, see,
Medium,
I couldn't resist that, I'm sorry.
all the way on.
You had also.
Well,
mentioned-
I think
I mean, you want to do light pollution while you're there? I mean, there isn't a bullet point to it.
Yeah, so I would definitely, you should put
I
in,
put it in here, so
Dark sky lighting.
I did recommend dark sky lighting is in here, and I think we put it with,
yeah, so what happened was there's bullets that have been added where the lower summary just hasn't been generated yet, but if we have details you can help with putting the meat to that, that would be great.
a baseline
Dark-
on the light, and then recommend night sky lighting.
So what's it called? Dark
Sky.
sky lighting.
Yeah. The place I was just at in the Adirondacks, they had, it was on the edge of a lake and they had stairways going down and they had these definitely night sky little lights attached to the post. So the air didn't diffuse, the light
Right.
didn't diffuse, it only showed you where you were standing. I thought, that's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Diane, why don't you just make sure we've hit all your points? 'Cause
Yeah,
you're
I-
quite a bit there.
I keep looking on. So far, I think we've hit them all. Good check.
I think we ought to be recommending solar on the roof. For sure, something of that size using that amount of
Well, there's
energy.
energy usage is one of the categories.
Yeah, they're requiring upgrading to the existing substation.
I think we've actually said that they are considering that, so it doesn't hurt to call it out.
Yeah, let's call
I think we called it out on,
it out.
The Amazon one,
Yeah,
too. and I think they said
They came around.
that they thought it was a possibility, but again, what they said is they think is a possibility, when it actually gets done is,
right.
totally different. Maybe totally different.
You captured wildlife corridors somewhere in there, right, Jeff?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Is
potential
there anywhere
impacts.
out there that they could connect to a trail?
Yes,
Did we
because,
say it?
because we
I
have,
know we said a survey, but
next to
did we actually say a tree
Buckhorn.
survey as well?
it's next to Buckhorn, and it's next to West River. Right, so we have.
Now, it's
West
not
River
like I put the
Trail.
numbers in where you had numbers, but then I have some new
I
categories.
think when I was
So it's kind of
talking-
all,
I was talking to
Yeah.
Pete,
and
he
when
was
we make
talking
our
about a
motions,
snowmobile, a potential snowmobile trail.
it's gonna
right
be
through
clean
there.
but messy
Mm.
for you.
That was during the Billy.
You could always clean it up and then send it afterwards.
I'll try to organize it. as best I
I mean, it
can.
doesn't have to be
So,
verbatim
yeah.
when you vote on it. You're voting on the overall. This is
Sometimes
generally what
Because
we're gonna,
They
you're gonna
said,
submit.
when it was Amazon, they said they would connect a bike trail down the West River,
I remember that, yeah.
right? So whether or not, these guys, well, I mean, it would be a nice little recommendation for a connecting trail.
Is this still having that chunk around that's not going to be the
Theoretically,
road?
it might not be bad to call that out.
Yeah, because we had,
How many acres was that?
Entertain
Does
the
anyone remember
idea
what that
of-
was?
we might have to look it up.
I know it's right off the Sunset there, which, I mean, having that buffer,
Yeah,
If the R1
the
section. correct?
conservation is that we had suggested.
because I know the developer is not thrilled about giving that up,
But it's included in here, right? Introduction.
Uh,
The R1 is not.
It's not in the project, is that what you're saying? Is that what it said?
Mhm.
Some property buffer, conservation easements.
Well, what it says.
Here it is, the property
The property
currently
consists of
consists.
vacant land is split zone between the towns M1 and R1A zone. Site improvements, but for stormwater detention facility are located entirely on one portion of property.
Right.
So.
And M1 is light industrial,
Mhm. So,
This does actually cross into more than one zoned area too.
right? Yeah.
So the retention pond is on a different zone.
Oh.
Which,
we objected to that with Amazon,
Which-
remember, like the stormwater generated on one zone should not be pushed off into the other zone. I
Right.
remember making that recommendation.
And now they're talking about a huge excavation,
you could mention that.
which could be very destabilizing to the adjacent property.
Uh, Stormwater generated, what was it, M1 or M1A, M1?
One property.
M1 zone property should not be. How do you want to say, pushed off onto, should not be,
Should not depend on a different zoned area to,
Should not drain, or should not, that's the right word, should not drain onto the R1A.
What if you phrased it a different way, like to the effect that any site improvements on the M1 parcel, or a study should be done to determine the impact of the site improvement on M1 as it relates to the remaining parcels?
Okay, so help me out here on this one. I have stormwater generated on the M1s of property should not drain onto the R1A parcel.
should not drain onto or be retained and rely on,
Drain,
retention on the other zone, the R1 zone property or whatever. That's more of a recommendation. I don't know if that's an EIS thing though.
that is just a, like our motion is going to be for the recommendations to the town board for the scoping document and the development. We always look at that as one motion. So, and I'll separate,
That
I'll
works.
separate.
Yeah.
Into two
I
categories.
think that's the only time we stray off the objective that we're really focused on here.
Well, if we throw in the bike trail.
Doesn't hurt to throw things into there either, right?
I mean, I did rate solar array on roof, trails on property, buffer, conservation easement, that's all, they're all bullet points here.
Mhm.
And then the stormwater. So
No other items on your list?
No.
that-
No, thank you. I'm,
Jeff?
I think we got the big ones. The big ones, of course.
So what
as
funds on
pertains-
the other side?
no.
Well, the other thing I noticed though with the involved agencies, I assume on the new one that we're included, because we were included in this.
Oh, actually, we
Interested agencies included.
have been added. Is it on this document?
I think we should
Let me look here.
be listed.
I think you're gonna see where we're on here.
We're not on there. We should be. You know, it says may not be limited to, but I think it's important that we're listed.
Okay, I know we have actually added it on a different document. This is a frozen in time when we submitted it to both the planning board and to the conservation advisory board, this document. And it's actually, there's been some more progress.
We're working off of the one that is available to the
But
public,
say-
so.
yeah.
Add tab to the interested.
Yeah, because like I know New York State Thruway Authority is not, has been moved also. It's been moved from down here to up here. To the involved from just the informed. Any other agency issues you guys saw? Like Conservation Advisory Board, definitely call that out, just because I know it's on another document, but
What about
I want to make sure
waterkeeper?
we don't miss it.
What about waterkeeper and their role? I mean, they have as much of a role. Well,
Called Ramsar, is that actually an agency now,
No,
or
no,
that's
it's
just a
a
designation?
designation. But waterkeeper,
You got the Corps of Engineers, you got the DEC on there. Did I-
Oh, yeah, they're here somewhere.
Right
Yeah.
there. Well, it's like land conservancy too. They're not agencies actually, but
the waterkeeper weighed in.
yeah. And they
I
want
mean, the New York State Historic Preservation,
Independent pressure groups.
But those
That'd be
are
kind of tough. But the-
government entity.
But stuff like the Greenway is government.
Yeah.
Um,
but the Greenway wouldn't comment on this officially.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, because it's the DEC's on there, so, I mean, they're
That
included
should
in
be
there.
covered there.
Yeah.
Anything else?
So I feel that when I came in here, the major things that I had were on there. Diane, you said the
Yeah.
major things that you had were on there.
Mhm.
Sam, you have anything else?
No, I think it's the same The same comments that apply to the Amazon project applies to this one, so. I didn't see, I didn't see anything new there.
So when the project was first proposed from the land developer after Amazon, if you
Yep.
remember, we did resubmit the same recommendations at that time. So I know you got it again,
Yep.
just because everything was the same except for the height of the building. It was just, it was a wider footprint. And it seemed more, the damage to the environment seemed more extensive from this project than Amazon. Which is, I think, a little known fact on the island, because I feel like when it was Amazon, everybody was tuned in.
This building's actually bigger in terms of acreage,
More
whereas
trucks.
the other one was just taller, but a smaller footprint overall.
Yeah, so
This one is just a big.
it's something that I think that a lot of people, they're like, oh yeah, no, the Amazon didn't go through, but there's another
Yeah,
warehouse that we're talking about that has a larger footprint. So
What about the few, similar to solar installations? How do you address what happens to that building
Decommissioning.
when, right, decommissioning? Yeah. How is
Maybe,
that
maybe
addressed?
bring that up.
That would be great to have like if it just sits on the news.
What an environmental.
Should there-
impact that
Should
would
there be a decommissioning plan or a decommissioning?
oh, yeah, good idea.
How many acres is that site?
I have that
207.
Wow.
somewhere.
So 63 is impervious, so
Uh-huh.
parking lots and buildings.
Because it wouldn't be an easily marketed.
Yeah, no,
And yeah,
I mean, how many places really, 200 truck bays, how many places and 350 truck parking spots? I mean, that's a big operation. Sounds like Amazon to me.
yeah, it is similar. And there's warehouses going up all over. Are they all really gonna get business? I
Right.
don't know. Oh,
these are all great questions. I feel like we've done our part here.
Yeah.
Paul, you got anything else?
No, I think we did pretty good.
Okay, so I have just a bullet list right now. You can't really see it, but I just have a bullet list of everything we talked about. I'm not gonna make a motion and repeat all of that, but we'll make a motion to submit a letter of advisement to the town board in regards to the scoping project and the development. Okay, I better write that down before I do that.
So will you circulate that and we'll, how would it work?
So, we can vote to send it and I can do up the letter and then I can disperse the letter to you if you wish before I send it, just to make sure the wording is okay. And then I can send it on to the town board, but it's going to include the bullet points that we discussed today.
So just in your motion, just say, as reviewed, we're gonna submit a letter, prior to sending, as part of the motion, a review and edit will occur prior to final submission by this team.
what kind of timeline do we need to?
Well, I know that the traffic safety is, I think, the second Tuesday of October, so it'll probably be the first meeting in October where it's gonna be close to the deadline. I mean, I would like this to be
I think there was actually one other thing
soon.
about the depth of,
in the next 5 days if we
Yeah.
could.
Oh, the depth of the digging.
depth of the digging. Might need some.
I mean, what if they hit the plug?
No, but we're.
Then we all sink.
Yeah.
I mean, that could have a destabilizing impact on.
Shouldn't that be below level to begin with because of all the lighting and familiars?
We are.
It is. That's why they're gonna fill up so much.
Oh, okay.
So they're actually 60, or is it 60 feet that I read? It's a lot, 40 or
Wow.
many feet of dirt is gonna be filled at some portions of that property,
They took a lot of clay out of there.
Yep.
It was in the 80s.
right?
We keep on talking when I'm clicking it, we'll hold that.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We shouldn't be talking.
Oh, no, it's not you, it's something that I just never
Oh, me,
really realized, I guess. Whenever I'm typing up my work, I'm always,
quiet.
that's okay. I get used to it. Okay, so, the Conservation Advisory Board, I'm reading this out to you just to make sure it sounds good and
Okay.
like the official motion. The Conservation Advisory Board will submit a letter of advisement to the town board that includes the points discussed at our meeting on 9/23/21 after review by our board members. That encompasses, I think, everything. Okay, all right, I make a motion.
Just say what it's about, the long
So for the
road.
long.
Oh, yeah, letter of advisement number that
Okay,
includes
it's not-
points discussed at a meeting on 9/20 on
2780
the
Long Road Distribution Facility.
road. All right,
So, do you want a motion?
all right, I am making a motion, and I've already typed it up as a motion.
I'll second
Okay, so here's the motion.
it. Okay,
The Conservation Advisory Board will submit a letter of advisement to the town board that includes the points discussed at our meeting on 9/23/21 on the 2780 Long Road Distribution Facility after review by our board members. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Diane seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
All right.
Official.
Okay,
Okay.
so,
Good job.
Jeff, motion. And then, so, 5-0, the motion is carried.
All right.
There we
Good
are.
job.
All right, we're doing well. Okay, so let's see what else I have here. How did things go with the solar law?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh, solar law.
Yeah.
So we've looked at these recommendations from the Conservation Advisory Board. There was actually a letter from Baywa, which is the Whitehaven Solar Farm that's actually gone through several approvals where they were requesting grandfathering. So they wouldn't necessarily, the law wouldn't apply to them. So that's another piece of information. The piece of information from here, piece of information of recommendations coming from the planning board. So we reviewed all of those. And one of the conclusions really was that, you know, on all sides of the issue, no one's necessarily happy, but most everybody at least have had a lot of their concerns addressed on both sides, you know, strongly pro development, pro solar, pro whatever. The folks that have concerns, the neighbors, et cetera, they have concerns about setbacks. The developer has concerns. Of course, it's polar opposite concerns. One says it's too much, one says it's too little. So when we really looked at the primary things that's been recommended, we had to balance it against one of the things we've committed to is for the developers, you know, the moratoriums on, if we end up revising and making a critical change on the law, it resets the clock. We have to redo everything, basically. We have to put it back through the planning board, we have to put it back through the conservation board, and we would blow through the moratorium deadline. By not, because we didn't see anything really critical, we didn't see a major thing. And the developer has issues and other folks have issues. It's kind of, we're taking the middle ground is we've developed this law. It's in the kind of in the middle and in the middle of a tug of war. They want to, more or less. And we're going to go ahead and put it into effect. We're going to continue to listen to feedback. If it's really determined that something really critical needs to get addressed, which we haven't identified at this point, we may go for an amendment, but at this point in time, we haven't decided doing that. So as a result, we're looking at, so there's a 30-day period. We've just approved lead agency for the town for the seeker. There's going to be a public hearing on the 4th, a second public hearing on this on the 4th of October. And the 30-day wait period for the seeker after we just approved it would be right about the date that the moratorium expires and the law will be in effect. So it'll be the second meeting, which I think it's the 18th or 19th of October, is right now pretty close to the target for when both the moratorium goes in, expires, and the law should be going into effect right about that date. So we're actually on track, and town board's fully on board with that. So we had a meeting Tuesday afternoon. It's on YouTube if you want to watch it, where we reviewed all that and deliberated all the issues.
Is the one on Whitehaven still at the end of Whitehaven, western end of Whitehaven?
Yeah, I think
Okay,
right across
so-
from the New York State Welcome Center.
Oh, no,
So
I thought there was one further up, near the campground that's sort of.
there's
started
one
to
there
work.
too.
Is
yeah.
that still in the works? Is that still?
Yes, yes,
Well, I
there's
remember reading about
4, I
property
think, that are being considered right now.
4. Where are the other 2?
The other one is over off a long road. Just so Grand Island Boulevard, hang a right, look left. So there's one over there.
That's right, where Solar by Sur is.
Yep, right. So right over there.
It'd be great just to put it on the roof of the huge warehouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know where the 4th one is. I've heard there is a 4th one. So there's the one across from directly across from the Welcome Center. And then the one over by the campground.
They have to be close to the substation.
One of those the schools, or what's the
I
location
wonder,
of the schools?
Schools is.
That might be the 4th one. So I don't really know where the
The
schools.
school owns property by the highway that's not really used for anything. But
Across
that's,
from the Blue Rock one, maybe.
and that's just interesting in itself, because I asked about that because the school is state, and so state, they can kind of,
Right, the school.
they don't
yeah,
have to do anything through the
Yeah,
town.
they don't have to comply with the law. We're gonna really press and encourage them to comply with the law, the local law.
Oh, wow.
So,
Except for the fence part. The fence. They just don't put a fence around.
yeah.
That's, I did drive through Amherst and there were 4 developments. No fences,
Yeah.
no
Really a
fences,
big solar with no fence. Huh?
no fences, big arrays.
Huh.
And so,
I went to see the shoe.
no fences. And what was interesting is that there were natural pollinating plants. They were all growing. They weren't growing directly under, but like right where they ended and right where the other one began, they were growing up nice and high, goldenrods and things like that.
Cool.
That looks okay, as far as solar arrays go, they're pretty ugly, but.
Well, since I'm updating on solar, I'll just update on a couple of other things. There's a right to farm law and a chicken law. They're both going into effect as well on October 4th, just so you know.
Did you buy your chicken?
Not yet.
What's the chicken?
So the chicken law has that a permit's not necessarily required if you have 6 or fewer chickens. But there's a number of things you have to comply with. So
Are you not allowed to have a rooster?
not allowed to have a rooster, right? So a chicken is defined as a hen, a female. It identifies as a female.
What was the other one? Right to farm and
Chicken law.
chicken law, right.
All right, and then the other, I'm kind of jumping ahead on you here possibly, Jeff. The other is in light of some of the things that have happened recently, the tree law, the tree ordinance is back up on the list. And we have a meeting at 2:00 on Tuesday where the town board is going to sit down and look at the 2 laws. If you remember, there was a law that kind of was developed from the rec and planning board. And there was a law. We had the original law.
Didn't really address anything private though, right?
So the law that we drafted, the conservation, I should say, not we, the conservation board drafted, was submitted to all the other boards. They removed a lot of items from it. Actually, I have it up here just so you can kind of see. So this is that law that we're talking about. Let's try and get this out of the way here. So anywhere where you see yellow, that's what's been basically removed from the other law. So this is the Conservation Advisory Board law. If you want to just, I'm not gonna go through the whole thing.
They removed the purpose,
All
the
the
purpose.
Not totally,
Why
but
would you remove the purpose?
a lot of it.
Nobody touches
I
the
know
purpose.
that's
None of
so
this is
funny.
in there.
This is why. you
Well, the
need to do
purpose of
this.
this discussion is not to
Anyway.
complain, mind you. I'm just showing you what's been removed. And really, they were focused on which, there's been uproars about trees, like a big beautiful tree over at the school got cut down. And it was on the right of way and it was a town tree. And there was no appropriate approvals on it, so. So these are the sections, if you want to just look at it,
Yeah, just,
Basically.
where's the private property?
it's coming up.
Let's see what they did there.
So this is,
Ah.
so this
Okay,
is,
so let's be clear, if that comes out, this in no way prevents what happened on Grand Island. So everybody who's complaining about forest loss, if this is if that comes out, then this would have done nothing. It still would have happened.
I can't take a read totally on the board, but if you remember, this was another board that reviewed this and we hit a loggerheads and just could not, it was irreconcilable. We couldn't get an agreement that would result in 3 votes. My sense is, I think on Tuesday, watch the meeting. I think we're gonna come out with a majority that are gonna support something. And one of the things that I think they're gonna support is, there's a lot of outrage about what just happened without good or bad with a particular development. I'm not gonna name it off, but I think we all know what that is, and most people watching will probably know what it is. So, so there was a lot of outrage, and that's not the first time. There was another one over by Tops, and there's another one over by Long Road. So there's been a number of times where a lot of clear cutting occurred where there was no pre-notification of the town board. And that's kind of what this is focused on. If we had this particular section, and no one should be under a false impression that just because we're asking for a permit doesn't mean it won't be clear cut. All it means is we're going to get a notification. The Conservation Advisory Board probably will be allowed to be in the discussion of, is there any way you can mitigate? There's the stand of white oaks. Can we save those in any way? Is there anything we can do to mitigate the impact overall? Because sometimes a developer may, I'm not going to say anyone does, but if there's always that possibility, they'll go in and cut down 90%, whereas they could have cut down just 70% and accomplished everything they wanted. So it provides that discussion, but it's a 60-day window from initiation to completion. It's got to be done within 60 days. So it's not an indefinite period of time. And I think 9 times out of 10, it's going to result in an approval for the clear cutting. The thing is, it's provided a timeout, a discussion, input from the town, input from the Conservation Advisory Board, anyone else that wants to provide input, and then the clear cutting will occur. As opposed to Thursday morning, or no, Friday morning after we met, talked about the trail at South Point, we find out everything. I mean, there was such clear cutting going on that wasn't revealed during that meeting. I don't think any of us knew that was going on.
So, I mean, this is obviously a touchy subject for us, but we will address, but I want to bring up 2 things in particular. One is, and one is okay. So, listen, if you're going to do it quick so we can get the Tree City USA designation. The second thing, that would be the positive. The second thing, there are 2 elected officials who came into office that were running on a tree for a tree, which is more restrictive than what's up there. So if that's something that you're considering, do that, a tree for a tree, because that's a good deal too. And they ran on
I
that.
think
That's what they said.
That is in here
That's
somewhere.
what they campaigned.
I think that's going to be a big discussion.
So,
And I think the reality is, to get a majority, we may have to make some compromises. I think the big thing is, if we can at least get a permitting process for clear cutting on commercial with a 60-day turnaround time requirement, where we at least are given that opportunity for a discussion, that's a huge accomplishment, I think, for the town. And I think that's probably
it's all right there.
right.
It's all right there. So what you're saying is all what's right
Now,
there.
the tree for a tree, I mean, when you look at what they just did
Right.
at South Point, probably not realistic. You're talking about 1 million trees.
Remember we talked about
Right.
other ways to mitigate, either creating a fund to plant trees somewhere else on the island,
Right.
not necessarily on the property that you're developing.
But even then, I
yeah.
think that would be so cost prohibitive, because, I mean,
I know,
when I say
but I'm
1 million
telling you
trees,
that, I'm
we
telling you
cut
that we
down
have,
so many trees.
it's me calling out politicians saying,
Even at
you ran
$1
on that
tree.
promise.
Yeah,
You said ours was too restrictive and you're claiming a tree for a tree, and ours is not that restrictive. Ours was just to inform the town that stuff is gonna happen.
Right.
Right, and so that's it, and I think if those two officials and you are on board, there's your 3 votes at minimum. So, in my opinion, like, it's never gone to a vote. And I wanna see the town official that votes down a tree ordinance, because this community
Yeah,
will be livid.
hopefully
It
before the
never
next
gets there. It always gets thrown back to committee because nobody wants to put their voice on record as supporting our environment.
I think it's gonna come to a vote. I'm more optimistic than ever, and this is a different board. And there was such politics that was involved in that prior board with, I'm not gonna name any names, but 2 individuals are no longer here, and I think there's more hope this time, but I could get shut down. We'll see what happens.
What time is the meeting, Chief?
But I want to be clear too, we're gonna have to arm wrestle, and sometimes I'll win, sometimes it will win, and we'll end up, hopefully somewhere's in the middle ground that at least accomplishes, I think, some things that we're currently lacking that would have been a great advantage to have had over the last 3 or 4 weeks before that clear cutting started. So I think that would be an accomplishment. So we'll see what happens.
We can listen in.
Yes, it'll be 2 o'clock, or you can come in. It's an open public meeting.
Oh,
So it'll be 2 o'clock on
this coming.
Wednesday, the 27th, I think it is, but it's Wednesday.
2 o'clock.
Might be the 29th.
Up in the town, up in the.
It'll probably be in case a lot of people there.
Mike,
Yes,
I was just gonna make a comment on that. Yeah, I'm wondering if this is more like granting a license for clear cutting. In other words, is this worse than doing nothing?
I would say no. But that's my opinion. I think, I don't think anyone, to clear cut like what just happened, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I think the thing that didn't happen with the most recent clear cutting is, number one, we woke up one morning and found hundreds or thousands of trees were cut down.
Yeah.
So we weren't pre-notified appropriately. It wasn't required to be, so they were in their legal authority to do that. This would create a requirement to at least notify us before that that's really what this is. It's a notification. And it provides an opportunity for a quick timeout, a quick discussion with the Conservation Advisory Board and others. And at least we will be heard. Will we be listened to? I can't promise anything there. And I'll be honest, like you're saying, Sam, it is basically saying there's probably going to be an approval for that clear cutting ultimately. My thinking process is hopefully we can positively impact or influence the direction of that clear cutting in this process. And that would be really what the objective is.
So, Mike, one more question. So this permit, if they are going to clear cut, will they be required to replace any trees at all?
That's
Yeah.
going to be a big discussion. And I kind of called that out. I think when we're talking about the discussion, this is
Yeah.
going to be a big one right here. How are we what's the mitigation measures? Is it going to be 1-for-1 trees? Is it up to a certain amount? You can't say it's going to cost $250,000 because you just cut down 200,000 trees,
Other towns have.
Yeah.
Other towns have. Like, let's be honest, the towns that value their natural resources have done that.
Yeah. Really that much? Yeah.
Really, sometimes more restrictive, depending. We read through all those ordinances and we know the towns that there's some that are super strict because their trees are gone. And then there are some that, have so many trees growing out of their ears, East Aurora, like,
Right.
that it might not be as restrictive. But in an area where we stand to lose most of our,
Right.
a lot.
So it'll be a big discussion.
So
that
next
one right
Wednesday,
there.
is it a workshop
So
meeting?
just
Are
so you
people
know the
gonna about
process,
it?
this is really feeling out the town board. So this
Is it
is,
a town board meeting next Wednesday?
So-
or What is it?
yeah, there will be a town board workshop, 2 o'clock,
Workshop.
where we're going through both both of the two laws, the cutout law and the fully loaded law that we have. And the intent is, hopefully we can come to some middle ground to the point where we can start kicking it through the process again. It's got to go through the committee again. But, you know, I would expect, or I would hope, that the next meeting, which would be in November, the planning board will be reviewing it, this board will be reviewing it. And concurrent with that, there'll be a public hearing. And hopefully in December, maybe an approval.
Well, we've talked about
And
this
that's kind of the
before.
timeline in my
That was
head
the
right
previous
now.
timeline.
You,
So I'm hoping that
It was the
December
previous timeline. It
is,
was the last town board meeting of the year that they sent it back to committee. And I'll never forget that Pete did that.
Mm.
I just can't forget that. Pete, I'm sorry, I mentioned your name, but kicking it back to committee was the death sentence. It would have passed, this would be on record. All of the developments that were happening now, the town would have at least known about it before it happened.
and
So,
you've been mentioning this at every meeting for the last year. So this isn't a surprise, this is coming up now. But we've been mentioning to you, we have little appetite to engage in this at the level that we did for the past.
I don't think you're gonna have to, I think
Because
that,
there are so many important things on our agenda every month. And to be sucked into that sort of endless spiral discussion, and as Jeff just
I don't think
described, is
it's
there
gonna
any
be
other
that
to be done
this
in the
time.
water?
I
It can't be.
have pretty strong confidence. I think when you watch Tuesday night or Tuesday afternoon, watch the meeting Tuesday afternoon. I think
Right.
you're gonna see a
Wednesday or
board,
Tuesday?
sorry, Wednesday, sorry. It's already been an extremely
Got it.
long week this week. If you guys watch the town board meeting on Monday night, you know why. Plus very intense meetings yesterday. Part of it was the solar law. But anyways, I think when you watch next Tuesday, you're gonna see a board that's not the board that killed it a few years ago, or 2 years ago. You're gonna see a board that's working together towards a common objective with this, what just happened at one of the developments with a win in their sales, basically saying, yeah, we probably need to do something.
It
So,
took all that. didn't it?
Prove me wrong, watch the meeting. And I'm not gonna say that you're not gonna hear heated debates, but one thing you'll see, like you'll see myself and any other council person in an extremely heated debate. Let's say it's Tom. And we'll be slapping each other's back, walking out of here laughing and talking about what's going on with their family. So I mean, it's a very different type of relationship.
Mhm.
The thing is, I think what we as a board need to respect is, you know, there's some people that are very passionate about property rights and individual property rights. They are right, that just like the folks that are very concerned about conserving and protecting the natural environment and everything. I mean, there really is, there's definitely two sides to the discussion. I think we need to respect it, and hopefully between those two sides, we can come up with something that at least addresses the concerns that exist on the environmentalist side.
Well, I'd like
It
to-
probably won't necessarily make everybody happy, because the reality is legally, I think it's gonna be very difficult for us to say, no, you can't do this clear cutting. But can we positively influence the outcome? And minimally, at least, everybody will know it's coming, and it's not like you wake up the next one morning and it's like, what happened?
Well, I think there's a third element involved in that. Besides property rights and environmentalists, and I think it's developers who think that they own the island, frankly,
there's a lot of.
and their influence.
There is some, I hate to say it, but there is some corruption.
Yeah.
People whose livelihoods are on boards that advise
There are
you,
conflicts.
and there is conflict of interest there, and that is, it's corrupt.
Right.
It's corrupt. But I.
Yeah, I don't know if that's corrupt.
I
So I mean, the planning board by nature is gonna have,
Undue influence.
are gonna have
It's,
developers on it.
You have
This
to-
board is gonna have
you have to abstain from the vote.
environmentalists.
You have to abstain.
So I mean, we're the counter to that, and we're, in both cases, an advisement to the town board. So it's really who you elect on that town board that resolve that conflict, and that's not corruption, that's just.
Ideally, you
That's
would
just
like
the
an
nature.
equal mixture on both boards. There
Right.
should be
But the
some
reality is-
environmental
I
representation
don't
there.
think we had that mix here, and they don't have that mix there.
We
So
have some
it's
engineers on our board. I'm okay with that.
pretty strongly pro-green.
Well, they're-
you know.
They're
Well, the
engineers, though.
Conservation
Well,
Advisory Board, there is no development board.
I'm just
But
saying,
there kind
that
of
I
is.
don't think it's corruption, I
But-
think it's really just the nature of the. beast.
Anyway.
It's how it's, they're gonna gravitate to
If-
planning, we're gonna gravitate.
If I
to
can,
CAD.
if I can entice you to just, if you're gonna do it quick, because if it's done before the first of the year, we have some work, we have some ducks to get in a row, because we could apply for those Tree City money.
Good.
But we don't wanna do all that work for there to be nothing. So if you guys, if you come to me and say, listen, I think we're gonna get this done before the first of the year, we need to know that, because that's a
You'll
lot of
know
work for us.
Tuesday night.
You may not.
I mean, if you
we may
hear a
not be able to
consensus
vote
develop,
because of it.
if you hear consensus develop on Tuesday at 2, during the 2 o'clock meeting, I think that's 90% of the battle is right there. And if you see what happened back in 2019, there was a wall so high, it was impervious. I mean, I couldn't break through the wall, so. But I don't see that wall today, so.
All right,
We'll
so
see what happens.
we're, like I said, we're passionate about it. You get us,
Right.
we definitely think, but we definitely feel
And,
like
you know, we gotta respect both sides of the argument.
there is both sides, but right now, the side that you're hearing from the most is the side that's saying, what the heck happened?
Yeah.
Right? That's what you're hearing the most. And
I
when it
don't
comes,
know, if I read all the posts on Facebook, I hear a lot of the property right guys saying, you could have bought the property. So I mean,
there are people who've offered to buy the property,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so let's not go there. There's been offers on parcels that they're developing to make it a park, and the developers choosing, no, we want to.
is it really? Okay, I didn't know that.
So let's,
That would have been nice. I would have loved
the
that.
developer said no, so.
First off,
Even in our South, do you recall when we had
what's
a.
that? Anyways,
All right, so, moving on.
sorry,
That's okay. We got the town board report. We just bumped that up.
and I do hear your concern, Suzanne. We'll see how the conversation goes on Tuesday. So watch that. And I think you'll figure out whether or not there's optimism, if my optimism is misplaced or not. So we'll see what happens.
Anything from long?
Pretty sure, though.
You know, I can, it doesn't
You
have to
can
be
defer to next
tonight.
month.
Yeah,
All right, well, Paul's got a nice trail map up there.
yes.
So what's going on with this? Is it published?
No,
No.
no date.
Is it in committee?
It looks nice.
It's pretty close to where it was the last time and the time before and the time before. Ask a lot of people, get a lot of comments, make a few changes here and there. Everybody goes back to review it, comes up with more comments.
I
All the
gotta say,
trails are
if
there.
you watch the Parks and Rec, I've heard Ray speak on this. He basically said, this should be, there's no reason why this shouldn't be in effect. And this was over 2 weeks ago, why it shouldn't be published within the next 2 weeks.
He's on the committee.
Yeah.
So-
Good.
so
But
right now-
he's the voice of reason. I hope he can help cut through the bureaucracy that you hit against, Paul. I greatly appreciate your efforts.
No, it's good. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I did meet with the new board, or the new subcommittee that Judy created for trails. They did not have a whole lot of objection to anything. We did have the informal meeting here with a whole lot of people. Everybody seemed to think, supervisor, everybody was here, everybody seemed to think it was okay. We went to the long range planning, everybody seemed to think it was okay. There's a couple little tweaks, but we just seem to go from, everybody seems to, nobody's saying it's wrong. Which, because it's hard to say it's wrong, right? It's a trail, it exists or it doesn't. We keep going back to long range planning, they got in there and someone said, well, I need my trail over here. And I said, doesn't exist today. Right, same thing with Pete, we're gonna put a white and a green trail, I think, on the other side of the bridge, connecting the gallery from, but he said, until we do it, I don't want it on a map. So he was great. He said, we'll do this, and then when I get mine ready, we'll go put it on the map. Revision X, whatever. So I think everybody agrees, we just,
So who gets to say, go ahead?
that's the
That's
problem.
the problem.
So
If you think it's ready, it should just, town board should just say, publish it
right, so
at the next meeting.
right, so there's
Yes,
So I
asked
met
Tom
with-
if he thinks it's ready for that.
Right, so in the long range planning, they said they wanted all the boards to have a copy of it, to review it.
Again,
Can we host a draft copy of this on the conservation website? Just so it's out there?
Right, we're there, nobody's objecting. The problem is like, this is the problem here. So we have a key with miles, and all these places, the numbers aren't here. Then somebody says, but I would rather see the number from here to here as a number with miles, which is what we originally had.
yep.
And then
I
they said,
remember
no,
that.
no, we want the key, so we put in a key. The next guy says he wants it this way.
How about both?
You can't,
You'll never do
you can't get, someone's just gotta say,
Do it,
do it,
yeah.
right?
Do
So,
it as it is.
so I think we're good. We got, one black line here and a key. So I met with Kevin today. I think we're ready to go. He
I
can
mean,
make
is
those
it-
changes. The good
Is it
thing
ready
is
to just have the town board say, go ahead and publish it?
hopefully in a day or two.
Okay.
He's got, I know of 2 changes, so.
Maybe send
I-
an email to the town board and just say, can you just to make sure it's official, can you, at your next meeting, approve this map? Just so that we can get it published.
It's gonna have
You know,
changes
and
in
maybe
it.
even say it's a living document,
Yes.
it will continuously be tweaked, but let's not go for perfection, let's go for good enough and get it out there.
Right, the good thing is Michelle, I met with Michelle after the long range plan because she represented the
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec. Yes, like it to the long range planning, and we worked it together. She added some additional detail in the state parks. So I want Michelle to give it a once over because she was the one who had the changes to the state parks on there. So I talked to Michelle the other day and I was same time here today. So I really think we're,
What's the process of getting trails onto that, like the all trails map? You know?
Judy was supposedly working on getting QR codes in the other meeting. She was assigned QR codes and
Because people are much more likely to.
all trails, I think. I asked back in November, almost a year ago, to see when we started this whole thing, if we could get the data we've already captured up in all trails with what Kevin has.
Mhm.
He sent an email to somebody. I don't think he got an answer, says I can just upload it. But I think you can walk it with your phone. Submit it to all trails. I believe there's a third one out there. I think somebody's already done it. So
Oh, okay.
Judy or somebody already did it. I believe we only had 2. I think there's 3 trails in there. So one of the trails is added, which means.
And I just put all trails out as an example.
Yeah. Yeah, I use a different one for biking. There's a bunch of apps.
So yeah, Paul, if you think it's ready before the cutoff time for getting it on the agenda is 11 a.m. next Thursday. So I mean, if you think it's ready before that date, just send an email to the town board and we'll get it on the agenda for approval.
So I'll try to get Michelle to do a quick review. Hopefully Kevin makes those 2 changes. And
Great.
I know he's been out sick, and then hopefully it'll come from Michelle and me.
Perfect.
That we've agreed from both sides, because the new committee, if the new committee agrees, I think that'll throw a lot of weight.
Good.
That's my opinion.
Okay.
All right.
So
Okay. Where will it be published?
this Rhonda will put it up on the website. We already have a thing called maps. Right, so if you look underneath there, I think we've got Gallipoli, I think we've got scenic woods. Right, we actually, the old map was out there. I did not see it. I mean, like the 12-year-old version was there before. I think it might have been removed, or I didn't seem to find it the last time, so. But the old map was out there before.
Oh. Thanks. Thank you so much. And
I can just quick report, the tree inventory is going along well.
Good.
As of last Friday, they had done like 1,400 trees and 500 planting sites, something like that. And it's only supposed to take maybe 2 or 3 more weeks for the inventory part of it. And I checked out, they're using software called Tree Keeper 2. You can zero so far it indicates where they've done, what streets they've done. You can zoom in and find your own street.
Oh,
And if there's a tree in front of your house, it's there. It's really cool software.
Is it? I mean, obviously, so next spring when I plant my 2 trees up front, they're not gonna be. Will you be able to add to it?
Oh, we're supposed to
The
update
town.
it every year. I
Oh,
think.
The town will own it afterwards, and then
Yeah.
the town will look after it.
Perfect.
So they create like a work plan for the town. This tree has been, pruned, this tree will need it in a year, this, and then all the data regarding the tree is, there's some huge data set for each tree.
Oh, that's great.
That's
Yeah.
neat.
It is. It's really exciting.
Even like if people call and say, oh, this tree has this problem, it shows up under the tree. It's really cool.
And this is what I assume a bunch of other towns are using.
City of Buffalo, yes.
Okay.
We heard from 2 vendors, and this was the one that seemed, most comprehensive.
Oh, any other news?
Sam, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything else to report today.
Well, I think I reported on the town board, but I don't think I can close the meeting without them shutting down YouTube. So we're gonna stay open for a little while. Anything you want to say to the public?
Well, the hints to that.
If you got the, if you wanted to.
I've been out of town for a few days. My head is kind of not where I was at that meeting. Do you mind if I report next time?
Absolutely.
I mean, I did, I'll do it next time.
I forgot to end the meeting.
And nothing more from the town, we're good?
Nothing
All
more.
right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All motion, second Suzanne, all in favor?